Do you know those whistles that dog trainers use to train dogs? The ones where they'll blow in it and you can't hear it, but the dog seems to be going nuts over it? Well, that's because dogs can hear a range of sounds that we as human beings cannot hear. Crazy to think about, right? We hear sound every day, but apparently there's some that we can hear. Now, light is very similar. My name is Richard Russ, and I've been extremely interested in light since a very young age. I've read a lot about it, I've studied it, and I'd like to teach you something about it. According to Bo Berman in his book Zapped, the entire world, everything in the world, the universe, is made of 99.9999999% of light. Insane, right? Now, most of it is what we call invisible light, light that we cannot see, but it can still affect you. Now, light is made by the intense movement of electrons that is brought on by some sort of energy, such as heat or electricity. What happens is you have the atom here and the electron. When that energy touches the atom, the electron goes very far out from it and then snaps back in. Now, that snap between the electron and the atom creates what's called a photon, which, for lack of a better word, is a particle of light. Now, when light was first being studied, there was a huge debate on whether light moved as a wave or as a particle. A wave being sort of like a wave in the sea. Interestingly enough, it turns out it moves as both. So imagine a radio antenna here and another one here. When this antenna transmits its signal, it sends out radio waves, which is light, in a sort of a radius around a dome, if you will, as a wave, kind of like if you throw a pebble in the water. Now, as this dome of radio waves travels, it eventually hits this antenna, and the antenna turns these radio waves into an electrical current, which is particle movement. So, in short, light moves as waves until it is perceived by something or someone. It then turns into particle movement. Same thing with your eyes. When light hits your retinas, it sends a signal to your brain through particle movement to perceive color and brightness. Now, there's a whole spectrum of light, starting here, which is the longest wavelength: radio waves, microwaves, infrared rays, visible light, ultraviolet rays, X-rays, and then the shortest of waves, gamma rays. We're going to start off by talking about radio waves. Do radio waves penetrate our atmosphere? Yes, they do. They have extremely long wavelengths, which can be as tall as buildings. They can be hundreds of thousands of miles long, but they can also be a few feet long. Radio waves bounce off the ionosphere, which is how we use them. Go back to the antenna analogy. If we have a radio here with an antenna and one here, what happens is this dome, over a long distance, it'll let that dome of light out, as I said before. It'll then bounce off the ionosphere and come back down to reach this antenna. And that's how long-distance radio communication works. Short-distance radio communication is a little bit different. It doesn't need to bounce off the ionosphere. They're so close that it just basically goes straight to it. Long-range communication is beneficial in the way that the wavelengths are so long that the waves can go around objects such as buildings, mountains. It's not going to sound as good, but it can travel as far. It can travel farther because of that. According to an article by T.D. Carosi in 2000, our emerging prevalent use of radio wave technology may actually be harming our ionosphere, sort of how carbon emissions are harming our ozone layer. It's thought back in 2000 that it could be harming the ionosphere, but at that point in time there wasn't much research done about it. This is just an idea that he threw up about it. Next, let's move on to microwaves. Do they penetrate the atmosphere? No, they do not. The Earth is very good at reflecting that back out into space, which is very beneficial to us. Microwave wavelengths are measured in centimeters. As a reference, the screen on your microwave door, the little holes on it, microwaves cannot fit through those holes, which is why the screen exists, because Microwaves are easily reflected by metals, which is why when you get microwaves taken, excuse me, that's false information. In a article posted online by a university, they say that some technologies that use microwaves are cell phones, radar such as Doppler radar, where they can see clouds. Radar, as in sonar, and submarines also use microwaves. And this is because they very easily cut through fog, snow, rain, and smoke. So the next time you're using your cell phone and it's foggy or smoky because somebody's burning near you, the reason why you have such good reception still is because microwaves can cut through those very easily. However, if there is a lot of water present, microwaves get absorbed by it easily. And this is how your food gets heated. The microwaves jostle around the atoms in the water and it heats your food. Next, we're going to move on to infrared rays. Do they penetrate the atmosphere? Yes, some of them do. They have very short wavelengths. They can be measured in millimeters from crest to crest. So infrared rays are not heat, but they create heat. The reason behind this is the wavelengths are at the perfect distance from crest to crest, that as soon as one crest hits the atom, the next crest coming is in the perfect position to jostle it the perfect amount to create heat. And this is how all heat in the world is made, from infrared rays. Whenever you feel heat, it's because you're getting bombarded by infrared rays. For an example, if you put your hand over a stovetop, the coils, of course your hand's going to feel hot, but this is because the infrared rays are coming from the coil onto your hand, knocking around the atoms in your hand, and thus heating up your foam. On a normal day, you are warmer than your surroundings, the ambient temperature, which is perfect for military, police who use night vision devices because they see an infrared. So you'll show up yellow or red compared to everything else around you, which is green. Next, we're going to move on to visible light, the wavelength that you all know about because we can see it. Does visible light penetrate the atmosphere? Yes, it absolutely does. It is also the most prevalent light rays that our sun gives off. Their wavelengths are measured in nanometers. A fun fact about visible light is that color and brightness do not exist in nature. As humans and other animals evolved, our eyes became perfectly sculpted to our solar system and our position in the solar system, to where our eyes perceive color and they perceive brightness. And when no one is looking, these things do not exist. Orange doesn't exist, yellow doesn't exist, and the sun isn't bright. It is our eyes that see that. Not everything sees exclusively invisible light as we do. Some nocturnal birds of prey actually can see in ultraviolet. So when they're up high in the trees and they look down and they see a puddle of urine, for example, they'll see it as glowing yellow maybe, or however they see it, a glowing puddle of urine, which is how they hunt animals. Next, we're going to move on to ultraviolet light. Do they penetrate the atmosphere? Yes, some of them do, which is good because ultraviolet light is a bittersweet thing. It's great for us, but it could also be terrible for us. This is the first wavelength of light that ionizes, which basically has the ability to tear apart atoms. Ultraviolet light causes us, when it hits our skin, it causes our bodies to create vitamin D. But if you get too much of it, it can also cause melanoma, skin cancer, or other conditions. So UV rays are separated into three different categories: UVA, UVB, and UVC. UVA rays are, if you're looking at visible light at the end of the rainbow spectrum, when the violet starts to taper off and get dim, that is UVA. It is basically harmless to you. It won't hurt you. And then there is UVC. We're going to skip UVB for now. UVC. UVC light is so dangerous that it can actually it can cause cancer pretty quickly, but it can also sterilize whatever it touches. However, our atmosphere is so good at reflecting it that one photon of UVC will only touch the surface of the Earth every 30 million years. That's impressive. Going back to UVB rays, these are the UV rays that we are most that we come in the most contact with. Say you're out at a picnic or you're on the beach. Funny enough, since we cannot see UV rays when we are under a shade at the beach or in a grassy field, we're actually still getting bombarded by UV rays because we can't see it, but it's still getting reflected all around us, bouncing around, and it's still hitting us. Especially on the sand. The sand reflects a lot of UV rays. So does moving water. So at the beach, you're gonna pick up a lot more UV rays than you would at a still lake. Also, moving grass works the same way. You'll pick up a lot more UV rays on a windy day in a field rather than a still day. So be sure to wear sunscreen because you don't want to contract melanoma or any other condition like that. Next, we're going to move to X-rays. Do they penetrate the atmosphere? X-rays do not penetrate the atmosphere. You're all familiar with them. It's when you go to the dentist and they take an X-ray of your head to see your teeth, or you go to the doctor and they take an X-ray you use to see a bone or something. Maybe you swallow something. And this is because X-rays can go through the skin, but it is reflected by your bones. It's also reflected by metals, which is why we use them. It is also ionizing radiation. It can break apart atoms. When X-rays first were discovered, basically, it was not known how harmful they can be. They would just point them at each other for hours on end to see what the effects of it could be. And it eventually turns into, after a few days, burns, lesions, hair loss, swollen joints, swollen skin, and it even turns into your skin slopping off and showing bare bone and muscle. Another fun fact about X-rays is that when it's pointed straight at the eye, it has been reported that people can see it as a bluish-gray tint. Of course, no one's ever going to do that nowadays because we know how harmful they can be. But they think the reason why they can see these colors is because when it hits the eye, it's causing so much devastation within the atoms of your eye that it's making a fake color, basically, that you're seeing. Next, we're going to move on to gamma rays. Do these rays penetrate the atmosphere of Earth? They do not. Our sun also does not let off gamma rays. This is because they're made by dramatic events within space, such as supernovas, stars exploding, black holes, nuclear material decaying in space also releases gamma rays. An article posted by the same university online that speaks about the electromagnetic spectrum, which is light, says that our main use of gamma rays on Earth is to kill cancer cells, actually. It causes so much ionization that it can kill the cancer cells on impact. But of course, when they do this procedure, they have to be careful because they'll kill your normal cells instantly as well. Gamma rays are too powerful to be seen through the normal method of using mirrors. Actually, if astronomers want to see gamma rays or any other study of physics want to see gamma rays, they have to slow it down by basically bombarding it with electrons enough so that it loses enough energy to then be bounced off the mirrors and seen with our eyes. Scientists mostly use it to look at those dramatic happenings in space that I aforementioned. Black holes, supernovas, things of that nature. So that was the full spectrum of light. I hope that you all gained something of it. I hope that you all thought it was as interesting as I do. Most people don't know about invisible light. Most people don't know the effects that light has on the person. I hope next time you go to the beach, you're putting on sunscreen. I hope the next time you go get an X-ray, you're sure to have your lead apron on. And thank you for listening.